Now for analysis on the opening of the 73rd session of the UN. I'm now joined in studio by Dr. David Monyae, an international relations and foreign policy expert and co-director at the University of Johannesburg Confucius Institute. Thanks very much for joining us. Always a pleasure having you in the studio. So a couple of things that are going to happen. First is we're expecting Donald Trump to join us join the assembly there and deliver a speech, and I'm sure all eyes on him. But the tone has been set, I think, by the Secretary General about what they expect, and there just seems to be, I don't know, what are your thoughts about his setting of the agenda and what can be done?
I think the United Nations General Assembly, his speech is the most important. It appears to me that he has said the most important thing, to say that there is a trust deficit in the world. I think this has to do with the lack of transformation internally. You look at the United Nations Security Council, it is not working. On issues of climate change, with all changes that had taken place before Donald Trump, they've been reversed. On peace and security matters, the Middle East is still boiling with Israel-Palestinian question unresolved. Iran, Syria, on the African continent, the unwise move to bomb Libya has made the situation worse. And we have other pockets of global conflicts that are emerging, and the UN appears not to be there. Not felt in terms of lack of resources, lack of capacity, but more importantly, the lack of the will and leadership, mainly from the developed country, particularly the United States. And as you are aware, since 1945, the US has led and played a critical role in terms of bringing everyone on board, the underwriter of this peace and security. Without US leadership, one does not really see any change. You see fragmentation, as you see with the build-up of the BRICS formation, IPSA, and quite a number of other groupings operating in the periphery of the main global body, which is the United Nations.
All right, so Donald Trump's going to be speaking shortly. It's been quite a year for him. A lot of things have happened that perhaps took people by surprise. A warming of relations with North Korea. Then, of course, there's this trade war that's happening with China and his stance on climate change. So what might he say when there are a lot of people watching his speech today?
I think he's going to continue and strengthening and try to prove to the world that he is America first. It's a workable and it's bringing good results, not just to the United States, but to the world. And I hate to say this, he has done extremely well when it comes to the peninsula, North and South Korea. I think there has been some movements which all other better head of states of the US have failed to do and move that part. However, the damage he has caused, it is irreparable when it comes to global trade. The entire WTO is now in question. One wonders if it will really recover from a Donald Trump. The European Union, the main ally of the US, is going on its own without the support of the US. The conflict with Russia is worsening, and you see all these military demonstrations in the US, partly with closer to Russia borders, as well as Russia itself with China. They've been showing, preparing for war. Therefore, I think the entire global atmosphere is in a worse situation, that it is prone to conflicts, and one hopes that it won't be conflicts of the bigger countries.
Can he possibly win over more than Israel in this assembly?
I doubt very much. I think he'll be constantly, isolated domestically and internationally, because his language does not have the support of European countries. I think he'll get more support from fewer countries that are going either anti-EU and those who are really right-wing governments, such as one in Israel, and few other governments that buy into his kind of divide and rule kind of language, which he is good at.
So this tone of revitalizing the United Nations, giving a voice to more of the world, it's constant, it keeps coming up, unlikely that things are going to change. We're going to hear from President Kagame soon after Donald Trump. What is he likely to say on behalf of Africa?
I think he will say a few things. He has played a critical role in terms of leading the AU as former head of the AU for a year. And there's the Kagame report, which has done quite fairly well in terms of bringing certain changes within the AU and how it operates. I think the most important achievement of Kagame has been to rely on resource mobilization on Africans, that the AU cannot continue relying on developed countries to get resources to keep its own peace. I think he has managed to do that. I think we see some improvements within the AU in terms of galvanizing resources, and Africa be able to speak with one voice and act on key issues on peace, but more importantly, infrastructure development, as well as intra-Africa trade, which these are key issues if Africa has to fare well at the global stage.
All right, and we can't forget our own president, Cyril Ramaphosa. He's going to speak much later today, I think perhaps this evening. What message might come through? I have no doubt that the name of Nelson Mandela will come through in the speech somewhere.
Indeed, former President Nelson Mandela's statue has been unveiled, which is a key issue. I think for President Ramaphosa, main message is to send a message to the world that his presidency is going to break from former President Jacob Zuma's foreign policy. That is bringing in the Nelson Mandela legacy, human rights centered, get involved actively on the African continent, as well as going back to ICC and other key areas where it was really unnecessary for former President Jacob Zuma to unravel a well-set foreign policy set by President Nelson Mandela.
All right, perhaps in conclusion, what can be achieved in this UN UNGA 73rd?
I think there are a few things that will be achieved. I think for President Ramaphosa is to ensure that he mobilizes resources. I think he's going to speak more with big business in New York. I think he will have an opportunity to talk about his main talk next month on the 26th of October, the investment endeavor that is going to take place here in South Africa. I think for the continent, it's a question of uniting around issues of getting more resources for the United Nations. As well on the sideline of the United Nations, I think the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Derko, Lindiwe Sisulu, will also be speaking with BRICS counterparts to ensure that you put more pressure for the transformation of the entire body, because in its current form and structure, it is unable to deal with African issues quite meaningfully.
All right, Professor Monyae, thank you very much indeed. We're going to have to leave it there, but lots still to happen, and perhaps we might have a conversation again about the aftermath of this. But thanks so much for your insights today.
Most welcome.